Hello, my people. Today we are talking about how to be more authentic at work. Have you ever showed up to work or left a meeting and thought, who am I in those meetings? I am nothing like my normal self. Do you ever feel like there's a big disconnect between who you are in your private life and who you are at work? And do you ever wish there was less of a gap between the two? If that's ever happened to you, like, comment, let me know. I want to hear it because that's what we're talking about today. And hey, if this is helpful, it would mean everything to me if you could like and subscribe. I am trying to get to my first 1,000 subscribers, and every single subscribe just makes my heart explode. So take a second and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Okay, so let's talk about authenticity at work. And I want to start by really kind of defining what I mean when I say authentic, because people always say that. They'll say, oh, just be yourself, just be yourself. First of all, which self are they talking about? We have the self we are around our friends, the self we are around our family, our coworkers, our parents, right? There's so many selves living inside of here. Which self are we talking about? And that's really where this work begins, because I will tell you what, as a communication coach, there are only two selves that I care about: big you and little you. And what do I mean by that? Like, what does that even mean? Little you is that voice inside of you that's the voice of the ego, that voice that's constantly scanning the room, like, who's above me, who's below me, who's better than me, who am I better than, right? Little you is constantly scanning the horizon, looking for danger, looking for reasons to feel anxious. Does that sound familiar? Can I get an amen? So little you is not where the great performances happen. From a communication standpoint, little you isn't even the real you. And you may be thinking, but that's just who I am. I'm just super anxious. No, that is who you have learned to be because life has made you feel anxious. But I have really good news. There's another version of you that I call big you. Big you is that place inside of you that is whole, that is enough, that knows that your uniqueness is what makes you incredible. It's what the world needs most. Because here's what I know. Inside of each and every person, there is a powerful, authentic, one-of-a-kind voice that is literally just waiting to come out. The trick is we have to know how to take the little self and, pat it on the head and say, thank you very much for all of your concern and your input, but we're going to give you a lollipop and have you sit down in that comfy couch over there so that big you can stand up and take over. That's where authenticity comes from. Authenticity comes from knowing how to do those things. So if you're like, okay, that sounds great. How do I do that exactly? I'm glad you asked. The work begins by noticing what stories you tell yourself when you're in little you mode. For example, think about the last meeting you were in where you just didn't feel yourself. Maybe you never feel like yourself, in which case you can pick any meeting you want. But pick a meeting or a work dynamic in which you were like, I don't even recognize myself, or like, this is such a fake version of me, right? Pick a situation. I want you to roll back the tape and I want you to pay attention to the thoughts that little you was generating, because he or she or they were very busy generating thoughts. Trust me on that. So for example, you may roll back the tape and be like, okay, walking into that meeting, little me was saying, I don't belong here. If they knew me, they wouldn't let me in. If they knew how nervous, inexperienced, ill-equipped I was for this, they wouldn't let me be here. All those little voices, those are all voices of inferiority, feeling less than. Right? Those are all voices that pour out of that imposter syndrome problem. And hey, if you want me to do a video on imposter syndrome, drop me a comment. I got a whole system for it. But those voices, those narratives that try to tell you you are less than, they're just part of a pattern. I call them junk thoughts. And really, there's only 5 junk thoughts that I've ever heard of or seen that get in the way of authenticity. And one of them is feeling less than or greater than. When you feel less than, your body language changes. You might roll your shoulders inward. Or if you're fronting like you're greater than, you might look down your nose at people. You know those people that act all inferior and you walk into the room, or they come into the Zoom and you could just tell they think they're better than everybody. Half the time, that's because they feel less than everybody and they're overcompensating. So what is the solution for that? I will tell you what the solution is. It's actually very simple. You have the opportunity to train your mind to stop thinking those repetitive thoughts, or as they call it in behavioral psychology, automatic negative thoughts, ants. So we want to replace those automatic negative thoughts around inferiority with something far more powerful, and that is a feeling of fundamental enoughness. I am enough, right? So how do we do that? Super simple. The same way we got into the problem, we're going to get out of the problem. Instead of looping on negative thoughts, we're going to loop on generative thoughts, encouraging thoughts, useful thoughts. My favorite mantra, I call them mantras, but you could call them affirmations, you could call them positive thoughts, whatever the hell you want to call it. I call them mantras. My favorite mantra for bringing up my feelings of fundamental enoughness and worthiness, here it is. Ready? I know what I know. They know what they know. Together we'll know more. Because for me, my inferiority is triggered by feeling intellectually outmatched. And I've talked about this before. That is my base level fear at work, is that I'm not smart enough. That is always at the root of almost every bad behavior I've ever exhibited in my career. It's that fear that I'm not smart enough. And so when I can catch that before I walk into a room and say to myself, you know what? I know what I know, they know what they know, together we'll know more. It reminds me that what I have to offer is mine and it's valuable. And I'm gonna take that part of me, that version of me, that big me into that meeting. And that will allow me to shine in all of my authenticity, because here's the secret. It is so much easier to be authentic, to call forward big you, when you're operating from a place of feeling pretty calm. And by reminding myself that I know what I know and they know what they know and together we'll know more, it automatically relaxes me. And that is worth gold, right? So I really, really want you to work with that this week. When you're feeling nervous, small, insecure, not yourself. Look, I'm even getting smaller in my chair. When you're feeling that, really check yourself before you wreck yourself. What are those thoughts? How might you replace them with something more generative, something that allows big you to come forward? Because here's the secret. The voice of little you, 10 times louder than the voice of big you in your own mind. That's the rub. So the job is turn down the volume on little you so that you can hear the voice of that big, authentic, radiant you that wants to shine through. Another technique I use when I want to listen to the voice of big me and dial back the voice of little me is I love to use journal prompts. One of my favorite things to do if I'm really feeling anxious about a meeting or I'm really feeling intimidated by the group that I have to speak with, I will journal and I will give little me the microphone. Meaning, I will journal, okay, little me, what are we so afraid of? And I just write it all down. Sometimes that scared, nervous self inside of me has some wisdom to share with me. Like, I don't think you practiced that enough. You need to go back and practice that talk a couple more times. Sometimes what little me, what the anxious, smaller part of me has to offer is actually valuable. And by giving it the mic and writing it in my journal, I can evaluate what makes sense and what is cuckoo. You know, some of the things we worry about are just straight up garbage, hot garbage served on china. So we need to really be able to distinguish between the two. And that journal practice is powerful. But then once I've let little me run its mouth, then I say, okay, thank you ever so much. Exit stage left. And I invite big me. And I write down, big me, what do you want me to know about the situation I'm walking into? And that big resonant voice inside of me always shows up, always. And usually she has something really helpful to say. So part of this work means developing a relationship with your own inner wisdom, your own inner strength, your own inner authentic voice. And don't even try to tell me that it doesn't exist inside of you, because it does. It's your birthright. It is as predictably correct and amazing as your fingerprints are predictably unique to you. So don't even start with me that you don't have a big you. You do. It's just buried. So this exercise is a great way to dig into that part of you and to develop that relationship, that rapport with your stronger, bigger self. Thank you so much for joining me. If that was helpful, drop me a note, leave a comment. I love hearing from you. And if you ever have a question for me personally, just slide into my DMs on Instagram at BronwynSF. Drop me a note in the comment explaining your question, or email me. I read all of my emails. Bronwyn@BronwynCommunications.com. Let me know what you want to hear. Any questions you have, any work scenarios you need help with, I'm here for you. I'm like your dear Abby, only cooler. If you want to master your communication skills in moments of conflict, I really encourage you to head over to noenemy.bronwyncommunications.com, and I have a free video that walks you through probably the biggest mental shift you can make to make you better at conflict. So head on over there and shine on. We need your light. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Mwah.